Thank you for tuning in to Cripple Talks Comics. I am the Cripple. This is where we get together and discuss comic books, storylines, characters, and all sorts of other things with my co-host Eladrius and our master of time and space, Zipside. Thanks so much for tuning in. Broadcast directly from the center of the multiverse, Cripple Talks Comics. Welcome back, guys. I'm here once again with my illustrious co-host,
Eladrius. Hello.
And we will be discussing the comic Green Lanterns Rebirth, the first volume, which is Rage Planet. We've discussed before that Rebirth was basically a reboot initiative from DC to fix the horrendous mess that was New 52. And this is the comic line based on of Green Lantern, which is really good if you're looking to get into Green Lantern. I recommend it. But Sam Humphries does a really great job of being able to start you off and slowly get you to kind of get your feet wet, so to say, in the expansive verse that is the Lantern chunk of the DC scape.
And he does this by not going into all of the history that Jeff Johns established, but by basically narrowing the scope to two Green Lanterns, right? 2
Green Lanterns on one planet. Well, I don't even think
Earth.
we don't even leave we haven't even left Earth at any point.
And
so far.
They're each am I missing something, or did Hal Jordan have problems? Like, did he have any kind of character shortcomings?
The main reason we don't like him is a character flaw that's a part of his character. His very cocky, very self-important attitude. But to me, it comes off a bit much. Like it's,
and especially since that attitude is rewarded.
Yes.
Time and time again. Whereas with the new Green Lanterns, the ones that are covered in these issues, books, comics.
Eladrius and me were having a discussion before the podcast
packages.
because he doesn't know comic terminology. Issues or books, sir, are individual comics. Volumes are story arcs, sort of like seasons of a television show. Does it make sense?
I'm still gonna have you correct me every single time.
And you know I love to. It makes me so happy. But yes, these are the ones covered in this story. Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz. Now, for you people who've been reading comics and reading any kind of Green Lantern before this, these names will sound vaguely familiar. To me, to be honest, even since their introduction, they didn't really stand out to me. Neither one of them. Now, after reading these volumes, I like them.
Is that because we didn't really know anything about them? I mean, we knew a little bit, right? We didn't know, like, their backstories. We didn't know what they had to deal with as far as, like, who they are.
I feel like we didn't get enough of either. They did. I read a little bit of the section of Blackest Night that involved Simon. And they gave us a little bit, but again, with everything that was at least for me, personally, as someone who read Blackest Night, I don't know if any of you who did agree with me, there was so much going on, my give a crap about a random Green Lantern popping up, just, it's sort of like, the building's on fire, and, the kitchen collapsed, and, oh, by the way, here's Steve. Well, that's great, Steve, but I've got stuff to do. I'll get back to you when, the building's not on fire, and I can get the people out the kitchen. And so I told Steve that he needed to sit there in the corner and think about what he'd done.
And if any of you could follow that analogy, I will personally applaud you. However, I think with, like I said, speaking as somebody who has not read a whole lot of comic books, I mean, my knowledge is very limited.
Right.
So I actually had no idea who these two people were. I had no idea who Jessica Cruz or Simon Baz were.
Right.
I mean, maybe I saw them in different pictures and, like, people talking about the comics, but I didn't actually know who they were.
Right.
And then with this new run
is
there you go,
word.
got it right. Point me.
Cookie for you.
I got to find out who Simon Baz was and the stuff that he went through. and the fact that he had a hardcore run-in with Islamophobia,
right.
which, have we ever had that touched on as in
well,
a character in DC?
I was watching, it's funny you say that, I was watching an interview with the guy who wrote the Green Lantern run the first time, well, not the first time, but the latest one was the big one from Jeff Johns, and that was one of the reasons he made Simon, was he was very frustrated with the treatment of Muslim Americans post 9/11, and he was frustrated that it hadn't really been touched on much. And the same thing goes with Marvel. Only recently is that being touched on with their Miss Marvel, Camilla Khan.
Miss Marvel, Camilla Khan?
Camilla Khan, I believe is how you say her name.
How? Okay, so is she like the new Miss Marvel?
Yes,
she. Okay.
Miss Marvel, just as a side track, Miss Marvel became Captain Marvel. And then she became the new Miss Marvel. Marvel's doing a whole thing. We'll cover that when we cover Marvel.
That's a
different... That's a horse of a completely different color.
I wouldn't have used those words, but okay.
Well, that's why your name's not on the podcast.
Cripple. I guess. I guess you got me there. Cripple is the only terminology. But, I don't know, because I also like Jessica Cruz and the fact that she has this anxiety that she's dealing with. I mean, as someone who has my fair share of social anxiety, I mean, this is, something that's really helpful. And I know we all know people that suffer from immense social anxiety.
Oh, yes.
Or just anxiety in general.
Well, it's nice to see, and not just in, and I'm not going to just compliment DC. No, I'm a bigger fan of DC than I'm of Marvel. It's nice to see in both of the major companies that they're starting to address stuff like this. They're starting, because there's, like we had talked about in our representation episode, it's nice to see that they're looking at individual characters, and instead of trying to make one character that's going through all these problems, they pick a couple of things that they know aren't being covered, and they make these real people. Throughout this issue and later issues that are this volume and later stuff that I've read with Jessica, they touch on her anxiety as if it's a real thing. There are moments where if you know anyone with anxiety, you're like, I've seen this. I've literally seen this. I personally, my wife suffers from it, and watching her in the middle, there's a point where she's in a battle later in this volume with a Red Lantern, and she has an anxiety attack, and she shuts down. I don't just mean as a superhero, she shuts down. And it's interesting to see such a realistic interpretation. And really the same goes for Simon, because we all know people who have been profiled for the color of their skin, or
like when we talked about diversity.
Exactly, when we talked about the color of their skin, the way they dress, who they worship. We all know people who, they look at you twice when you go to get on a plane, or you're pulled over.
You just happen to be singled out for a routine random screening.
Or when your black friend's driving the car and you seem to get pulled over,
there
and I'm just examples like that.
It's bad enough that there are so many, that there are jokes about it.
Right.
Like,
it's bad enough to where it's almost become a pop culture
reference.
And that's what I like about Simon, is that if you've had any kind of treatment like that, you can identify with Simon's frustration. I mean, as much as he does come off a bit douchey at times, but if you know anyone who's been through that sort of thing, they can come off that way very standoffish because they don't want to be victimized again.
I mean, and to be honest, these two, again, as someone who doesn't have much experience in the realm of comic books, these two interest me far more than Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan is what, he's wealthy?
No.
I thought he was wealthy.
He doesn't actually come back to Earth for us to even care about how much stuff costs.
Well, no, I'm talking about before he was Green Lantern.
His family was, I want to say, middle class, because they were a military family.
I could, well, maybe I'm just getting the movie with Ryan Reynolds.
Let me double check, because I'd have to check Secret Origins, but I can check that for you.
Secret what now?
That's the when Jeff Johns redid his origin. It was called Secret Origins.
Okay. Cool story, bro. Thanks for sharing.
If we're going to do a podcast on the Jeff Johns run of Green Lantern, that's 8 years.
Oh, Jesus.
That's 8
Don't
years
ask
of
for
comics.
that, because then I have to sit here and I don't know what to talk. This is his realm. This is the Cripple's realm. Oh.
It was a great run, though.
Show.
It was a nice 8 years.
I'm sure it was to certain people.
Anyway. But I definitely get what you're saying. Hal appeals to me, people. And if that's your taste, that's fine. But Hal is very much the standard go-getter, captain of the football team kind of character. And I think we've seen that story, and that's great.
We've seen that story many times in
DC. And then exactly. And to me, you send that guy in, and he has elements of other DC characters that do that element so much better. He's a smartass. Barry Allen is a much better smartass than Hal Jordan. I mean, they work well together, but Barry's got the wit when he's talking. Hal Jordan is that, I'll do the right thing whenever needed to be. We have Superman. He does the right thing. That's literally his whole thing, is I'm here to do the right thing. He's a good old boy. I mean,
And, I like the fact that these two struggle not just with their own issues, the fact that one of them was discriminated against, the fact that the other one doesn't seem to give herself enough credit for anything. And then they have to turn around and deal with each other and somehow vocalize their problems to each other. Or at least start to do that.
Well, exactly. And I feel like when Sam Humphries had Hal Jordan come in, and just as a side note for all of our people who haven't read Beat Lanterns, the short thing is you have to have a little battery that charges your ring. Hal Jordan shows up at the very beginning of this, jams their batteries together, and so now basically they have to work together to even charge their rings. And I feel like where I didn't know when they first introduced that, I didn't know where Sam Humphries was going with that. I feel like that adds an interesting dichotomy.
Oh yeah, it's a really good juxtaposition between the two. Someone who is confident in himself all the time, but has no sense of how other people feel.
Right.
Because he's been the avenue for people's aggression all his life.
Right.
He doesn't understand what that would be like to inflict that onto somebody else. And we see him doing that a lot to Jessica. Exactly. It's just constantly berating her, and with her own, she has no self-confidence.
Right.
And she's somebody that, because of, circumstances and the way she feels, she doesn't like being around people any more than she has to.
Right.
And so she has to deal with with telling him that she doesn't need to be the avenue of his rage.
I'm actually gonna have to borrow a phrase that you had used in many of our conversations, since we're also friends outside of this. A good way to summarize Simon, which I feel like it is something that sort of explains why he berates Jessica as much as he does, which should hopefully, because I don't want people to think that he's so beratey that he's not identifiable. And one of the phrases you've used a lot is your whole life, when you've lived as a nail,
it's hard not to see everybody as a hammer.
Exactly. And I feel like that's where his aggressive defense comes in. Is anytime he feels like he could be struck at for whatever reason, not just physically, but at all, his immediate response is to, no, I'm going to shut that down. And I feel like while they're oil and water at the beginning of this, and like I said, I've read up to the second volume in, they're starting to be able to blend and mix and help each other in a healthy way. But that's the interesting part about this first volume, is just seeing these two very different opposing forces try and unite.
And another thing I like that this author or writer does is the fact that we're led this entire arc, issue, story, to believe that Red Lanterns are just evil, because those are the main antagonists of this entire thing. The Red Lanterns trying to take over the Earth for one reason or another,
right? And
we're led to believe that they are just a negative force, someone that's out there to conquer and oppress. And then the second that Simon is able to cleanse one of them, her name being Belize, we see that that's not true at all. I mean, she's just drowning in her rage. That her rage is actually justified.
Oh yes.
I mean, maybe not what she does with it, but the fact that we can understand how she got to where she got.
Exactly. Well, it's also the first time. This is why I really love this for first-time Lantern readers. This is the first time we run into a ring that you don't choose. The rings find and choose you as a Green Lantern, yes, but you can turn a Green Lantern ring down. It's not going to force itself on you. Some of the negative emotions in the spectrum do not work that way, and red rings are one of those ways. Rings, they find you because you're full of rage, but once that ring's on you,
you can't take it off.
You can't take it off because it replaces body functions, and your mind does not work the same way. You are very cognizant of your rage before you put that thing on. When you put that ring on, other than a few people, it consumes you and it makes you very monstrous. Which is, again, why I agree with you. Having Simon cleanse Belize out of nowhere, it just suddenly makes the reader stop and go, wait, there are beings under these rings. They're not just these faceless monsters here to destroy the planet.
Yeah, there's not like, there's not the Jedis and there's not the Sith. There's not these people going and being evil just for the sake of being evil, and these people being good for the sake of being good. They're very much, okay, well, I have willpower because I happen to have willpower, and they have rage, well, because they happen to have rage. Exactly. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, as somebody who who hadn't been big into Green Lantern, it's certainly not as much as you, and having been exposed to this, it kind of reinforced the idea that, oh, so I can't just look at the color red and assume that that person's evil.
Right.
I have to assume that maybe they have some underlying character emotions behind them.
And I'll say, that is something that Humphries does, because like I've said, if you've read the run that came before the Jeff Johns run, you know a lot of these characters and their motivations. Humphries does a really good job at hinting at it without throwing you into the deep end. With Belize. When Belize is cured, there's not this, you don't get her entire backstory, this big thing to digest.
Get the one event that really changed her.
You get a flash of the event that changed her, and then her panic at the fact that she's been cleansed. It's not they don't go into this big long explanation. It's okay, here's just enough to know what's going on, and then if you're curious, you can reference this stuff later, which is, I think, the best way to get some of these new fans in, which is why I'm loving the way it's written right now.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, as somebody who didn't read a whole lot of comic books, it was really the entirety of the issue, the fact that they have this really, really cool thing going, and I love it, and I kind of hope that they keep it. I mean, don't want to jinx myself, but
right.
I really like small touches. Like, small touches, when I read through a comic book and it makes it seem believable to me, is a big deal. And one of those is the fact that when Jessica first gets her green ring, she immediately questions it. She's like, okay, your judgment's off. I mean, it's not possible. My sister is braver than I am. And the ring goes, yes, but she's not determined to be a Green Lantern. You are. She's not been designated a Green Lantern. They even try to pawn it off to the cat.
I remember that, yes, her sister has a cat.
And this ring is just, even though the ring responds like a fucking machine, like, it doesn't say, oh, you go, girl. It's like, no, affirmative, correct, negative. You were chosen. You are designated Green Lantern, blah, 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 blah.
Of sector, yeah.
And I'm just like, even though it doesn't say anything like, a motivational speaker, it comes at just the right moment in the dialogue to kind of figure, okay, this is where Jessica needs to pull her I'm actually worthy kind of attitude from.
Right.
And I see them building up to that slowly but steadily. I mean, she's a baby Green Lantern. She has no idea what she's doing, what she can accomplish. And throughout the entirety of the story, with that ring that keeps telling her, well, this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you've been chosen to do, it's kind of pushing her forward, little by little.
Right. Well, and the same can be shown with Simon, with the teddy bear.
Oh god, the teddy bear.
So Simon is this big, rough, gruff guy, as we've discussed. He's very crass. While they're in his, when this event starts, they're in a shopping center. And to not go play-by-play, Simon sees this teddy bear, and he goes, this will be great for my nephew. And he grabs this teddy bear, and then the entire through all the conflicts and finding out people are possessed and everything that goes on, he's still got this teddy bear for his nephew. He's protecting it.
And at the end of the story, they do bring that back. He gives it to his nephew.
They do.
What's the line he tells his
nephew? Because it throughout the events that happen, without getting specific, it gets roughed up, little scarred, and he brings it to his nephew. And I can't remember if it's him or Jessica, but it's him. Okay, he gives the bear to his nephew, and the nephew says, "Why is it all burned up?" And I believe he says something akin to, that's its wounds it got fighting the forces of evil. And then the nephew is just so excited.
That, or like its battle scars.
Or there's something akin to that, which was just fantastic. It was...
Because this Simon is... He's used to being the butt of anger. He's used to responding angrily. He's gotten in his fair share of trouble throughout his life, legal trouble.
Right.
And he comes off a bit douchey at times, especially when dealing with Jessica.
Right.
But when it concerns his family, you get to see someone that we don't get to see very often, which is a guy who doesn't use his attitude as a defense mechanism.
Right.
Someone who is open around his family.
And it's funny, we bring up this volume. There's a little, I want to say 2-issue setup. I believe, did you read that as well, where they sat with the family? Because I don't want to bring it up if you didn't get a chance to read it.
They sat with the family.
Like, after all this is up, they actually have, like, dinner with his family.
Yeah, I remember this one.
One of the nifty things about this is after the little Rage Planet volume, there's this little 2-issue thing they do where they have dinner with the family. And one of the best things I love about this is when this issue opens, all you see is Jessica in some bathroom, and she is having this conversation, psyching herself up for something. It sounds like they're about ready to go fight Darkseid or some big baddie, and she steps out and is just socializing with his family.
Like, that scene got me because, as having friends who suffer from anxiety and suffering from depression, it's something that when you look at yourself, you have to tell yourself how to feel. Because if you don't, you could walk out there and somebody could make one off-the-wall comment that's not meant any other way than just to be a joke.
Right. And
you take it the exact wrong way that it was meant.
Right.
And it's just something that you have to build yourself up to gradually.
Well, and I love that she has to keep an eye on that, both in and out of combat, and Simon has to keep an eye on his anger and his rage, and it's really interesting to watch these very human problems be expressed in a very non-average setting. And I have to say, you hear a lot of complaints from classic comic book fans towards both companies about the diversity and the changes, but I'm loving this because you're getting so much more humanization.
Yeah, they weren't born Green Lanterns.
Right.
They were people, and then these rings chose them, offered their services to these people. And it's kind of like what they try to do with New 52 Superman.
Right.
Except in my mind, the difference is Superman was always super. I mean, he was born super. I mean, he had those powers, whereas Jessica, Cruz, and Simon Baz did not.
They were just people.
And it is different from with them and Batman and various other people who are human, who just go out with high-tech gizmos and do things. These guys actually have power. Like, they actually were gifted, superpowers. Exactly. They can fly through space. I mean, normal people, Batman can't do that without a suit. No. I'm just saying. So it's really interesting to see that these people are indeed human. They don't stop being human the second they put on a ring. Right.
And I want to compliment both companies on doing that, because they're both doing that so well. I'm going to sidetrack for a second, only because I'd recently gone over it. You want to bring up the humanizing issue. Sam Wilson, Captain America, another good suggestion. The fact that people constantly tell him he's not as good as Steve Rogers. He's not as good as Steve Rogers. You're not as good as the white Captain America. But he... And you see him struggle with that the whole time, and it's actually mentioned in the issue.
It again, in my mind, if we're gonna go on that,
the characters say that.
I'll say one thing on that, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. He's more Captain America than Steve Rogers is, because Steve Rogers didn't know what the fuck YouTube was.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay, and I'm just saying, Steve Rogers was not up with art. He didn't know what American Idol was.
Nope. Or Star Wars.
I'm just saying, these things are like, if you're going to expound yourself and say that you encompass America, that you are America, you're Captain America, you should know some of the things that people talk to you about. I mean... Right.
And just to close out that point, I completely agree with you. And that's something I believe the writer also does, because he takes those kind of comments that are made online and stuff and makes that public opinion. And that's why I'm enjoying both companies right now with a lot of characters. These are people. And as far as I'm concerned as a fan, I get that 90s comics fans where it's fast-paced and it's flashy and that's great. But I feel like if you don't have people behind that, there's no substance.
Well, without building up to anything, it kind of... You shortcut it, and then any kind of... fulfillment that the audience, us, get out of these characters spending days upon weeks. I mean, not obviously, in their worlds, growing as people. We miss out on that. And so we're just like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, you're left kind of empty because you don't really care about these people. You don't know, in Simon Baz's case, the fact that his sister is there and his nephew is there and his brother-in-law is
and all
there.
that, yeah.
And the kind of ways that they react to different things that happen. Jessica Cruz's sister. The fact that literally she is dealing with Jessica Cruz, you know, her sister who's got anxiety, who is now a Green Lantern.
Who is living in her house because she doesn't...
Well, yeah, because, I mean, it's hard having what she had, you know, dealing with her issues. And you just don't see that. Too many people are quick to rush back to, what was his name? The old Superman from... old days, like really old.
Christopher Reeves.
There you go. Where he was living in a penthouse as a journalist. That doesn't happen. You can't afford a penthouse on a journalist, and not New York or Metropolis or whatever that city's supposed to be. But
City of tomorrow.
yeah, really. I mean, it's just you can't afford those rooms, those buildings, those houses.
Right.
Our America currently, with the people that we live with next to, nearby, that we have contact with, don't have white picket fences. You know? So it's like, whenever you see those superheroes, you're like, oh, well, I can't really relate to that one.
Right.
Meanwhile, Jessica Cruz, like, with certain people we know, it doesn't have to be skin color or gender. No. It can be the fact that she has anxiety. The fact that Simon Baz himself is Muslim.
No, exactly. Well, it's one of those things. I loved this story. You guys should pick it up. The being introduced to the Red Lanterns in a new way was great. The conflict was great.
I also like the fact that they didn't bring in all the colors.
Yes,
they just showed us green and red.
Exactly. I feel like if you're new, they'd sway to dip you in. And to be honest, I don't think the story would have been as great if we didn't care about these characters. I feel like if this had been the 90s and we just presented with, here are the Red Lanterns, here's what they're doing with the Hell Tower, everyone's going crazy with rage, it would have been a passable story. But Sam Humphries goes, no, here are these people.
Oh yeah, he goes a step beyond that.
Yes.
And he's more like, you know, as far as this goes, yeah, we need more than just, oh, well, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm green, you're red. we need actual, like, okay, well, how does Jessica deal with this? How does Simon Cruz, Simon Baz deal with this? Not Green Lantern 1 and Green Lantern 2.
Right. Well, I mean, it's one of those things. They take this interesting question of people with anxiety have a hard time getting out of bed in the morning. Okay, so this person not only has to get out of bed in the morning, she has to go fight a giant rage monster. You know, Simon Baz, as someone who faces, you know...
Oh, I thought we were talking about Simon Baz.
Poor Simon. Sad face.
I'm just sorry. I was, like, immediately annoyed with... Well, like, okay, I like him as a character, but yeah, he kind of annoyed me with his immediate...
Yes.
Talking shit, you know? I'm just saying. But I guess, I mean, they didn't know each other at the time.
And he gets better.
Oh, yeah, he gets better. But most people get better. Most people.
Also, his interaction with Batman later is great.
We ain't covering that season.
Are you sure?
Episode.
Are you sure?
Package.
Because I feel like we could skip a little bit. No?
You just want... We'll cover Batman and his exploits against Bane when the time comes.
Tom King, why do you do this to me? I know we've never met, but I feel like you're trying to insult me as a person, and it makes me sad. Bane is not interesting. Nobody likes Bane. Okay, correction. The guy sitting next to me likes Bane, but he also likes Lobo, so that should tell you that his tastes aren't taste.
Well, you know, to each their own, I guess. I have no idea.
But I just, like I said, Sam Humphries does a great job of making us care about the characters. The villains' motivations are are understandable. They aren't, we get a little bit of it, and it's not just
twirl my mustache,
put the girl on the train tracks, it's
that was old, like
little Dudley Do Right for everybody. A.T., the person who's next to me is A.T. Eladrius' husband, and he is a big Lobo, Punisher, and Bane fan, so that should tell you his taste doesn't exist.
His taste doesn't exist?
It's not a taste.
Look, you like Batman, and we forgive you.
Forgive? No.
Forgive.
Batman is Batman, okay?
Batman needs to be forgiven.
Batman is an amazing hero. Lobo is Dog the Bounty Hunter in space.
Your hero dresses in pajamas and beats up the mentally ill.
Sounds like a great idea to me.
Wow. Well, and now we know a little bit about the Cripple.
You might want to cut that. You might want to
No,
cut
hell no.
that.
We ain't cutting
We're
this.
keeping it.
This is some important dialogue, and we don't cut important dialogue.
Anyway.
I don't know. I mean, as far as it goes, I like those. I like the fact that he does what he does with Belize. I wish that we would touch a little bit more on Atrocitus, but I guess we have to like pull back and wait for future stuff.
To get Atrocitus' motivations, there's like just so much you'd have to pull in. I feel like that's why he didn't, because he's got some motivations for being the way he is. It doesn't excuse his behavior, but it frames it really well.
Yeah.
But it's just so much, because I mean that goes back to like pre-Guardians of the Universe stuff.
Shit that I don't know about.
Like no, it's pre-Green Lantern Corps stuff. It's early in the continuity. So yeah. Now they introduced some of that in the next volume, but I feel like for a first volume, it was a good decision to just go, okay, here's.
Well, like
stuff.
I said, it just goes with like, okay, it happened. I'm assuming that this is one of those to be continued type things. So we'll have to see.
My biggest thing, as someone who's read up through volume 2 and the beginning of volume 3, is I feel like I'm just hoping that Rage Seed, the little plot thread that was left at the end of the volume, isn't something that we're gonna have to wait a year to come to fruition.
Yeah, like I noticed that a lot of people, because we were talking about character development and whatnot, and the fact that they have issues with how slow some of the story progression is going. There is such thing as too slow, and hopefully they don't fall into that trap with the ending.
Well, there's a happy medium. It's a twice a month series, so I don't have a problem waiting until June or July, volume 4 or 5. But I feel like if you wait till the beginning of the next year, then it's like, okay, well,
what was this again?
What was that?
Let me go back and
scene.
figure out what the hell you was talking about.
So then you've got to go through like all these books and what's left. It's just, it's one of those things. But I mean, it's really well done. I agree with you. As someone who does know Atrocitus' past, it would have been nice to have been able to give us a little bit, but I myself couldn't figure it out, so I imagine it's the same thing. Some people are like, well,
it might be a little bit too much for people who are just coming in. I mean, and I'll be honest, until you guys had talked to me about how Jordan was, I didn't even know who he was, because I was used to Jon Stewart.
I feel most people I've talked to from our generation, it's the Justice League cartoon, and Jon Stewart is the Green Lantern. Like, the reason I know who Hal Jordan is the Super Friends series from 60.
Is that the one where they touch rings and one goes form of water and the other one goes form of bird?
Yes, you're talking about the Wonder Twins. Yes, that's the same series.
Oh my god, I guessed right.
I don't even think we've seen the Wonder Twins in like,
because that's
they're in JLU.
Yeah,
oh, they were in JLU. The Ultimen, yeah, they were the little. You remember Justice League Unlimited? The twins that were like the white little furry looking creatures.
Oh hell no, I don't remember. That sounds awful.
Go to Go to Netflix, kids.
Okay, I'm gonna come in on this one. JLU, okay, there was a part to where Katniss made heroes of their own. It was an Asian who was a leader, there was a black guy with electricity powers, and there were the two twins who could transform. Those characters are actually
all Justice League characters.
Updated characters from Super Friends.
Yeah.
So we had a samurai.
Yeah, samurai. Yeah.
We had Super Vulcan or Black Vulcan, whichever one you want to go for. Black Vulcan.
Okay, so
Apache
it sounds
Chief.
like that one guy from the Star Trek show.
Apache Chief was in there too.
Apache Chief, yeah.
He was what was he called? Long Shadow.
Long Shadow, yes.
Yeah, he was called Long Shadow in the thing, and his power was to grow tall. And same thing with Sean.
Eat a joke.
They've changed that.
Yeah, because it's kind of brown. It's bad.
It's now a magic chant for a Indian magician man in DC.
Yeah.
So, like shaman, you mean?
Yeah, he is a shaman. I'm not sure that's his name, but
well, no, I'm talking about not Indian
Magician man. Is not he's talking about your terminology.
This is why I mastered time and space, not words. This is why I don't.
Well, you've never mastered words, that's for sure.
Now,
I'm just happy I guessed that right. It's been so long since I've even seen... Yeah, the Wonder Twin powers activate a form of...
Water. It's usually some form of water and then some animal. I'm not sure if that's what they're limited to, but I believe that...
it's better than the fucking... What was it, like Family Guy Robot Chicken one?
Oh,
That was even worse.
That was gross.
But,
gross.
I don't know. Like I said, I like this initiative by the comic books by Marvel and DC because I don't really know any other comic book companies that, to be honest, I didn't even know Static Shock came from a different comic book series. That's how misinformed I am when it comes to comic books.
Yeah. Really, I don't know many of the indies either. I'm gonna try for this series to pick up a few indies. We're not doing Top Cow AT.
Why do you want... Okay.
Your husband is going to be so uncomfortable if we cover Cop Town.
No, I'm just going to make Zelda noises. Not Link ones. Zelda ones. They sound like sex moans.
That would be Witchblade, folks. Check out that anime. Make sure your parents aren't in the room.
No. Turn it as loud as you can. Make sure your parents are in the other room. And when they come in and go, "Why are you watching porn?" Go, "It's just a show."
It does sound like porn. That's a fact. I can't even.
Is that Pokemon?
Oh my!
Thank you for that childhood flashback. I appreciate that. Screw it. We're friends and we all talk anyway. It reminds me of something I saw where it was Witcher 3. It says Witcher 3 when I'm alone in my room, and it's just epic armor and weapons and in a fight. It's Witcher 3 when my parents walk in and he's butt naked and it's got a butt naked chick on the back of the horse. And I was like, oh well.
I don't even. And now we've discovered why I don't play Witcher 3.
I can't blame you.
I mean, if you enjoy it.
Not for me. That's my wife playing that one.
No, your wife is playing Horizon Zero Dawn right now.
Currently, yes. That's also good, by the way.
I mean, you know.
Yeah. Why not? We'll plug nice things.
But I don't know. When it comes to the... When it comes to this initiative by Marvel and DC to make more humanized characters, more heroes that we as normal people can connect to, I don't have an issue with it.
Exactly.
I mean, it's why... I don't know, we're going to cover it in the next episode, but it's why I like Jane Foster Thor so much, and not Odin's son. Odin's son's fine, but he doesn't... I mean, the most interesting one I remember, the most interesting iteration of him, was him trapped in the Doctor's body. And then they had to, like...
Old school Thor.
And they had to be like, I have the power, and turn into...
Oh, you mean the cripple that's not really a cripple.
Who?
That's a cane. It's not a stick, it's a cane. He was a cripple. But don't worry, the magic... Dr. Blake.
When? I don't remember him walking with a cane.
No, every version, that's a cane. He has a limp. But don't worry, the magic powers will make you not a cripple, so you can be useful.
He becomes a different person. He turns into Thor. It's not him. Thor's in his head going, hey dude, I have the power. And he goes, not now. I'm trying to save this person's life. And Thor's like, I have the power? I mean, really, it's not him. So, and then when he does turn into Thor, he's at the back of his mind going, that dude's bleeding out from his femoral artery. You should probably stitch that up. And Thor goes, with my meat hooks? And it's just like, I mean, I really like... But that's why I like Jane Foster, because you don't have to do all of that. You can just have a human character. It's because you laugh and then I'm laughing now.
By the way, yes, our master of time and space is half hyena. You better keep that laugh in. You broke him.
Okay. I'm good. I've made notes.
Okay.
Okay.
But it's why I like Jane Foster Thor so much, is the fact that, she goes through issues that one would normally see with her medical predicament.
Right.
I mean, it's why why I'm liking these 2 new Green Lanterns and a lot of other characters that we're now seeing a resurgence in, because they're humanized. They're more people. They're not just, oh yeah, I put on the suit and the fancy cape and go out and save the person from the burning building and I can do no wrong. It's like, gotta be careful with that. You're still a person.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like, as a story-focused comic book fan, I feel like this is a really good renaissance of sorts that's starting. And there's been that big, we'd mentioned it on our video, but I want to bring it up again. There's been that big debate about, is diversity killing comic books? The answer to that is no. What's killing comic books, and some of these people may not even be against diversity. What's killing comic books is one bad character doesn't quite pan out the way everyone expects, and then you tout the entire movement. There are some characters that have come out of this movement that I don't like, but that doesn't mean the movement doesn't work. It just means that either, if I'm in the minority, I just need to not read that character, or if I'm in the majority, they just need to go back to the drawing board because that character...
Well, I mean, think about it. It's like, out of everybody, you can still name a ton of white superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
You can still name the superheroes that do everything that they did before the new initiative.
Yeah.
I mean, Batman's not different.
No.
Superman's... Okay, it's a new Superman from the old world that we're all used to. So it's the same Superman.
Superman Reborn, it's real confusing. I'll explain it all.
Rebirth? Reborn?
Yeah, it's an initiative within Rebirth. It's a thing.
I don't give a shit. And then you go into Wonder Woman is not entirely the same, but she's still the same Diana, the same Wonder Woman that we all know. I mean, her powers may come from...
But her personality, she is the same heroine, right?
I mean, and you got you got Green Arrow, you got Black Canary, you've got...
They're finally big.
We can rattle off all the people that are the same, the way they were the same, and then when we mention diverse characters, you can still have those diverse
your
characters.
Ryan Chose and your Ray Terrell, forget Ray's last name.
But I mean, you can have all of these different, all of these diverse characters and not give up on the ones that people are afraid that they change.
Well, and like I said, I feel like that the complaint that old school people are just upset that Marvel is not giving them options, that's incorrect, because we've got 2 Iron Men, we've got 2 Iron People, which is Riri and Victor. We've got 2 Thors. I mean, we've in most of the cases we've got 2 of each. I feel like you just can't complain about that. If you don't like it, don't read it. Case in point. Nothing against it. It's not like it's a bad comic. I'm not a Green Arrow fan. Not gonna go pick up and read Green Arrow. It's not gonna happen. I didn't like Robin Hood. I'm certainly not gonna like Mr. I'm Better Than You Social Justice Robin Hood. It's not a thing. That's cool. You know?
Like Batman, but like better.
No. You should be set on fire for saying that. I might set you on fire after this podcast.
This is just it's why I'm really liking the Rebirth initiative as a whole, is because I agree. I enjoy the characters on a whole more than I dislike them or any stray one. You know, I like all these different characters that we're getting, all of the Jessica Cruz's and all the Simon Badges. That's not necessarily okay. You don't have to go, the most obvious route, which is the gender's different, or the race is different, or the sexual orientation is different. You can go subtle, like the religion is different, or they deal with a mental problem.
A good example of this, and I know we always plug stuff that we like. We saw the Power Rangers movie recently, and the Blue Ranger in there is dealing with autism. And I talked to my friend at work whose son has autism. That is her husband watched it. Realistic. He said
all the
straight
way
up.
Through?
He said, her husband sat there and watched the movie. He said that is a realistic representation of what they go through, especially the detention scene with the crayons.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like all the way through. Like my only question was, is it the same all the way through the movie? Because at some parts in the movie, it seems kind of like he drops it, and I wasn't sure if that's because he's used to these people or because he lets what's his face touch him. He lets the red one touch him.
From what Jason said, if they're comfortable with you, it can. It depends on how severe. on the spectrum they are.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess he was extremely high functioning.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, it's one of those things, like you said, I just love that sort of, we're getting these humanizing characters. And from the ones like Superman and Batman that haven't changed, you're getting their recognition that the world has changed.
Yeah.
Superman doesn't just show up like it's the 50s and say, golly gee, kiddo, way to go. He's like, well, this is really horrible. I wish I could do
fish on a fish stick, Batman.
You know, it's exactly, you know, Robin doesn't just bust in and make a quip and then Batman's like, haha, chum, and you're just like,
chum?
That actually happened. It was in the 60s. Like,
he was American and not British.
That chum, it was a thing. The 1960s Batman.
Why? Why are you making strangling motions at me?
By the way, I'm not doing that. That's the master of time and space. Is making strangling motions at Eladrius.
Oh yeah, he, you know.
I will forward all your hate mail directly to his email address. But yeah, I agree with you. The Green Lantern is a great. It's good on its face, even if you know about Green Lantern. It's good if you're new to the universe, and if you're somebody who's facing,
you're somebody who's facing these kind of issues,
it's comforting. Okay. All right. Well, I think we've pretty much said all we're gonna say. Mm-hmm. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Next week we'll be bringing you Jane Foster Thor, and hopefully we'll have the schedule for the following month out, and I can give you guys 2 issues ahead. Real quick, I wanted to do at the end of the show. I always want to bring attention to issues that we may not get to that I don't think this one's losing readership, but I want to bring some attention to it. Justice League of America, go check it out, and we'll probably get to it at some point. But thanks, guys. See you next time.
This is your master of time and space, thanking you for listening to the Cripple Talks Comics podcast. If you have any questions or suggestions for us, go ahead and send us an email at crippletalkscomics@gmail.com. That's crippletalkscomics@gmail.com. For more content, check out www.rebelsaga.com, where we cover conventions, video games, anime, and more. You can listen to this and all other archive podcasts at iTunes, Stitcher, and rebelsaga.com. That's iTunes, Stitcher, and rebelsaga.com.